Negative Emissions Platform is a membership group for carbon removal companies, which includes mainly producers, suppliers of CDR, but also some buyers and some other players in the ecosystem, investors and marketplaces, registries, etc. We do a lot of work on advocacy, but we are also focused, as this initiative shows, on trying to improve the way that the CDR industry interacts with other stakeholder groups. What I'd like to do is take you through a very quick introduction to carbon dioxide removals. Some of you may know less than others, and so I just want to plug those small gaps that may exist. If we can move to the next slide. And this is a great graphic from BCG, which shows you what the range of technologies that CDR includes is like. It shows you that we have what some people call nature-based or temporary removals with forests and ecosystem restoration, and more permanent carbon removal methods, which can be based on in the sea or on the land. So in the sea, they can include direct ocean captures, taking CO2 directly from the water, can include changing the chemistry of the water through enhanced alkalinity. And there are other methods which both on land and on the sea involve biomass. So what you can do with sustainable biomass is you can sequester it at the bottom of the sea or underground, and that will not decompose. And that's therefore also carbon removals. You can use the biomass for biochar, which is great as a soil amendment. You can use it to create energy with bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. You can also use other processes that are in nature, like the weathering of rocks, which you can enhance by powdering those rocks and spreading them on a field or on a beach. And that will absorb CO2 naturally. And then there are some methods, including direct air capture and the bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, which result in CO2 in a bottle, if you like, and that needs to be stored somewhere. So you can store the CO2 underground, you can mineralize it underground, turn it into rock, or you can just put it into a disused oil field or gas field as well. So in general, we're talking here about methods of carbon removals, which are all taking CO2 from the atmosphere and doing something with it so that it's stored, we say permanently, or let's say for long durations, which is many centuries to millennia. Next, please. Right, so why do we need carbon removals? Well, according to the IPCC, which of course is the scientific consensus in the world, we need to radically reduce emissions to close to zero in the coming decades. And that will not be enough because, first of all, there will always be some further emissions, which we need to compensate for. And secondly, there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere already today. And so what you see in the stylized graphic here on the left is that the dark shaded area at the bottom is what we call carbon removal, or ultimately that, and that shaded area is pulling the white line, the net CO2 impact on the atmosphere is pulling it downwards, so that ultimately after 2050, we hope we can then start to reduce the actual atmospheric levels of CO2. It's a small part of the effort compared to emissions reductions, but it is completely essential. Without it, there is no net zero, and there's certainly nothing like negative emissions in the long term. So why are we convening you today? Why do we think this should be of interest to investors? Well, because there seems to be an investment gap in carbon removals. If you look at clean tech investment, carbon removals is not even listed in this Bloomberg graphic as a separate standalone thing. It's sort of assumed to be part of the CCS part of the graphic. And as you can see, that is quite a small proportion of even CCS, which is broader and bigger than carbon removals, is quite small in this graphic. And it represents approximately or less than 1% of clean tech investments, which is far, far less than it should, particularly if we are going to be scaling this industry at the speed that it requires scaling in order for us to meet the 2050 goals. So why do we think it's great for people to be investing in carbon removals now? Well, we want you to know that this is an industry which is united in its purpose. We have many, many different methods, but people are all pushing in the same direction, which is removing CO2 from the atmosphere. We have a clear view about what is and is not carbon removals. And we are beginning to create more institutional relations with stakeholder groups like NGOs and the insurance industry, government, media, etc. So we're getting organized. And here are some reasons why you should invest in carbon removals now. It's an industry which is going to be very, very large by 2050. We expect demand to start to increase exponentially. And by 2050, we think it'll be $1 trillion industry. So get in early, lock in your favorable terms, get yourself a supply of high quality carbon credits, hedge your transition risks, and help us to shape this industry. And you will find that it's a rewarding investment in the long term. The agenda for the rest of the session, I won't go through, but it's here on the screen for you. We've got a lineup of very exciting speakers to give you a nice overview of the business of carbon removals, the technology, the investment case, etc.